Caseus, Dawn of War. Chapter 6. As Master Drolig started up the shuttle, Caseus sat down next to R3, keeping an eye on Sarah. He hadn't seen her this upset in a long time, but he knew why this hurt her so much. A Padawan's braid is a symbol of their devotion to walking the path of a Jedi Knight. Upon reaching knighthood, the braid is cut in a ceremony by the Grand Master himself, and Sarah had hers taken by a filthy collector on a backwater planet. Caseus walked to Sarah and sat next to her. He didn't know what he could say at a time like this. As he put a hand on her shoulder, Sarah slowly reached back and put her hand on his. "Sorry for snapping earlier." "You had every right. I'm sorry. What's important is that we find Master Takai and get her home." "Sarah, maybe this isn't the right time to ask, but..." "Probably not. But go ahead." "You seem kind of different lately. You know you can tell me what's going on, right?" "I know, but I don't think I can tell you. Not yet. I need a little time to figure it out myself." "Okay. I just don't want you to feel like you're alone." "I know. Thank you." Master Drolig soon called out from the cockpit.
"We're flying over the Badlands now. I don't see this palace yet. We may have been misled."
"It's got to be out here somewhere. We have to keep..." Caseus suddenly felt an immense feeling of danger wash over him. The right side of the shuttle was suddenly blown open by an unseen force. Cargo and supplies were sucked out into the air as the shuttle began spiraling downward. R3 was sucked out into the open air as Caseus quickly tried to pull himself to the seats, only to be sucked out himself. "Caseus!" The Padawan just managed to grab hold of the side of the shuttle, his hands cut by the shards of metal shredded in the explosion. He lost his grip as Sarah grabbed his hand, holding onto her friend as much as she could, but the force of the wind was too great, and Caseus was violently wrenched from her grip, screaming as he entered a 300-foot freefall. His eyes watered as he spun uncontrollably towards the earth, quickly trying to come up with a plan. Below him was a swampy marshland. He needed to cushion his blow to survive. Calling upon the force, Caseus redirected himself towards the swampy water and painfully plunged inside. His vision went black. Every fiber of his being was in pain from the landing. He could barely move or see anything, and he was running out of air. He reached for his rebreather, the simple act causing him immense pain as he attached it to his mouth, taking deep breaths as he slowly swam upwards and emerged from the murky water, crawling onto soft, muddy ground, taking a moment to breathe and assess what happened. Looking around, he slowly stood, his legs barely able to hold his weight. He grabbed a stick from a nearby branch and supported himself as he walked up the hill and looked off into the Badlands, seeing a trail of smoke leading to a large plume of fire miles away. His heart sank into his chest. Sarah and Master Drolig could be hurt. He had to get to them, but he didn't make it 10 feet before he collapsed onto the ground, completely unable to move. His vision began to fade as he passed out against a rock. He was awakened hours later in the dark of night by a nudging against his leg. Opening his eyes, adjusting his vision to the dark, he saw R3 standing in front of him, dented and damaged, but functional. "R3, are you okay?" Caseus tried to stand. His body ached all over and his head was pounding. As he stood, he turned on his lightsaber and checked himself for damage. He was in worse shape than he thought. Large bruises covered his chest and arms, and his leg was bleeding from a puncture wound caused by a branch in the swamp where he landed. He was cold. His wet tunic stuck to him like a soggy piece of paper. "R3, we have to find Sarah and Master Drolig." Caseus opened his emergency kit on his belt and quickly cleaned and closed the wound on his leg. Grabbing the stick from earlier, he hoisted himself to his feet and kept one hand on R3 to help him keep his balance. Slowly but surely they began to walk in the darkness, R3 using his scanners to provide a clear path for walking. He had to get to Sarah and Master Drolig before someone else did. The walk was long and painful. They had barely made it a mile before Caseus had to stop and rest. "If I could understand you, I'd ask how you made it out." Caseus took deep breaths massaging his sore limbs as a bolt of lightning illuminated the sky. Drops of water began to fall. They burned as they touched his face. Acid rain. We need to find cover before we get caught in a downpour. Igniting his lightsaber, Caseus looked around and saw a small gorge nearby with a crevice inside. Making his way over as quickly as he could, he and the droid took shelter under the rock just as the rain began to pour harder than any storm he'd seen. Sitting with his back against the wall, he worried. Sarah was out there. In this. She could be hurt. Closing his eyes, Caseus concentrated, trying to sense his friend. She was alive. He could feel it. And that gave him a modicum of comfort. He rested his head against the wall of rock and put a hand on R3. Shut down, R3. Save your power. We'll be okay for a few hours. We'll go out and search when we have light. Obeying, R3 powered down, now little more than a hunk of metal. Caseus closed his eyes and tried to rest. As he slept, visions entered his mind. He saw tall, dimly lit corridors, pits of boiling acid. He could hear something. His master was screaming in pain. He woke up in a cold sweat. The rain had ceased, and dim light crested the landscape. He was still aching all over, but he could walk. Switching R3's power back on, Caseus stepped outside onto the soft soil. Come on, R3. Let's get moving. Do you see anything on the scanner? R3 beeped and projected his findings through a hologram. Okay. The shuttle crashed 2 miles from here. We should be able to get there soon. Any life signs? That's not good. Come on. As Caseus and R3 made their way to the downed ship, they stayed under cover of rock and plant, just in case their assailant was still looking for them. I'm worried, R3. If they aren't at the shuttle, they're probably looking for me. And if they are at the shuttle, I have a feeling something may have happened. Still, I can sense their energy. There may be hope yet. I can't understand you without a translator. Where's a protocol droid when you need one? Not sure what that was, but I know it wasn't very nice. Watch it. After hours of trekking through the Badlands, Caseus found pieces of debris from the ship in the dirt and a large trench created by the crash landing. We're close. Come on. Caseus followed the trail of debris and soon found the shuttle. There was no way this could be fixed. A massive hole had been blown into the side, and the rest of the ship had suffered catastrophic damage. Sarah? Master Drolig? There was no answer. R3, scan the area. See if you can find any tracks. Scanning the field, R3 projected another hologram for Caseus. There were tracks, all right. Not from feet, though. Some vehicle had come to the wreck. That's not good. Whoever showed up must have taken them. We need to follow the tracks. Caseus and R3 ran through the debris field and followed the trail left by the assailants. The tracks were still fresh, less than a day old, meaning he wasn't safe in the open. He had to keep his wits about him. The terrain began to get rougher, and Caseus was forced to climb and help R3 up to the taller rocks. Remind me to have Corbin fit you with some propulsion rockets. Finally, they reached what looked like an open field, an endless expanse of land. Following the tracks further, Caseus could see where they led. They had reached a large rocky canyon. Inside the canyon was an enormous dome-shaped structure, with several speeders and terrain vehicles parked outside. This must be the palace Tabu told us about. Whoever's in there can't be friendly. Caseus crouched by a rock and removed his macro binoculars and looked for any entrance. Every door had someone stationed outside. There was, however, one point of entrance that he could see. A large ventilation pipe built into the wall of the canyon. If he could get inside, he could find out where they were keeping his friends. There was just one problem. He was on the opposite side of the canyon. Great. I can't climb down. It's too steep. How am I going to get across? From either side of R3's legs, 2 small rockets appeared. You mean to tell me you had those this whole time and you still made me carry you up the rocks? We're gonna have a talk about this later. Standing on the edge of the canyon, Caseus looked down. If he fell, there was no coming back from this one. You sure you've got enough fuel to get us across? I'm just gonna stay optimistic and assume that was a yes. R3 ignited his rockets and floated into the air. Taking a deep breath, Caseus leapt and grabbed onto R3, who slowly began to float them over. Caseus looked down, keeping an eye on the guards, praying they didn't look up. Suddenly, R3's left rocket began to sputter as they were halfway there. They began slowly lowering towards the earth. Not good! Not good! Looking at R3's rocket, Caseus smacked it a few times before it ignited again, and they continued their flight. Reaching the pipe, Caseus leapt off and landed inside next to R3, whose rockets finally ran out of fuel. Let's never do that again. Let's go. Caseus walked through the inside of the pipe and found himself at a forked pathway. R3, take the right path. I'll take the left. Take this comlink and stay out of sight. Walking down the left pathway, Caseus found himself crouching and crawling through an air vent. As he crawled, he heard voices from below.
Those prisoners put up a fight? Not much. They were in pretty bad shape. What about the third one? Sucked out of the shuttle during the attack. You sure we don't have to worry about him? Jedi aren't known for being pushovers. No one could have survived a fall like that. Besides, if he did, chances are the wildlife got to him first. I think the boss will be happy enough with 3 Jedi.
Caseus thought to himself, 3 Jedi. So they did kidnap his master. And if Dravok is involved, they'd need his help. But if he was going to find them, he'd need more information. Reaching out, he waved his hand and played a mind trick on one of the guards. Where are we keeping the Jedi again?
Where are we keeping the Jedi again? Did your brains get fried in that last shootout? They're in the detention center on the 3rd floor. Now come on, the boss is arriving soon. Right.
3rd floor. Detention center. Better contact R3. Caseus pulled out his comlink and contacted the droid. R3, head to the 3rd floor. They're in the detention center. Hurry, we don't have much time. Caseus made his way through the air vents quietly as possible. He could feel the presence of his companions. They were close. He soon reached a steep drop leading straight down. Attaching his grappling cable to a metal duct cover, Caseus rappelled downward until he reached the 3rd floor. Grabbing the closest vent cover, Caseus pulled it off and jumped into the hallway. It was empty. Boxes of antiques, furniture, and old droid parts were scattered around. Suddenly, he heard footsteps, and hid behind one of the crates, peeking out very carefully. It was one of those scavengers from earlier. He should have known they couldn't be trusted. The scavenger stopped in front of a door and used a keycard to open it. The scanner beeped as the door opened. As he walked through, he didn't see Caseus sneaking behind him. As soon as they made it through and the door was closed, Caseus quickly grabbed the scavenger in a chokehold from behind, forcing him to drop his rifle. You should count yourself lucky. You'll only be unconscious. I've had a pretty bad day, and I'm very close to causing some serious damage. The scavenger slowly stopped gasping for air and went limp. Caseus dragged his body to a crate and hid him inside, taking his keycard as well. Caseus followed the hallway to a large, rusted metal door. He could feel Sarah's presence, and Master Drolig, and Master Takai. This was it. Using his lightsaber, Caseus cut through the door and barged through. There, hanging by energy restraints at the center of the room, were his friends. All 3 were in bad shape, and Sarah looked to be unconscious. Caseus ran to his master. Master, it's me, wake up! Master Takai opened her bruised eyes and looked at her student. Caseus? Master Drolig looked over with shock.
Caseus, you're alive!
Not for long if we don't get you guys out of here. Slicing the controls to the restraints, all 3 Jedi dropped. Sarah dropped and nearly hit the floor before Caseus ran and caught her. "Sarah, wake up. It's me." Sarah slowly woke as her eyes met his. "Caseus?" "I'm here." Sarah quickly pulled Caseus to her arms and hugged him tightly. Caseus returned the hug and helped her to her feet. "I thought you were dead." "You didn't think you were going to get rid of me that easily, did you?"
"We can exchange pleasantries after we get out of here."
"Okay. Where are your lightsabers?" "They were taken from us. Most likely taken to whoever's in charge of this operation. How do we find them?" The chamber door suddenly opened. The Jedi turned and saw a tall figure with a wide-brimmed metal hat and a bowcaster step into view. "Oh, this can't be good,"